Hello, Brandon here with Minnesota Blockchain Initiative. This is the MNblockchain Conversations podcast, back in the Quantum Lex studio in Minneapolis after a couple of episodes in Honduras. We return to talk to MNblockchain pillar and a woman who offers support to many organizations in town, the inimitable Mickey Mikeworth. Consultant, humanitarian, financial expert, connector, and overall so caring and helpful. Mickey talks about her life and career, her approach of doing heartfelt work in the competitive business world, and her thoughts on MNblockchain and Web3 tech in general. Enjoy. Yeah, I liked actually the picture you took because it's kind of representative of your role. Your face was half in the picture.
Yeah, half in the picture.
Not. You're largely
quiet.
Behind the scenes.
I'm behind the scenes.
You're talking to companies we work with. You're talking to me outside of the board meetings. And you're helping all of these initiatives move forward, like this podcast.
Right.
And so we were talking about, something about life,
right.
like personal growth or something like that. And you do a lot of consulting.
I do.
For startups.
26 years.
Yes. I just really want to pick your brain because of all of your career and your work with people, mentoring them. And so like the life advice you have, I think is super valuable. And I really admire you as a leader,
Thank you.
As someone with a really big heart. And it's unique in the tech space, right? Because you get a lot of really smart, driven, but you might not always have the empathy. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird being a nonprofit in the tech space because if you're in the for-profit realm, it's really go, and
it is
that kind of thing.
It is.
So I like, and I have a lot of builders on here who are that way.
Right.
So I liked the idea of having you in with that perspective and this role with MNblockchain.
Right.
So how do you introduce yourself when you meet someone at, say, a cocktail party?
Well, that I'm a numbers geek.
Okay.
So, I'm probably the most lovable, huggable numbers geek, math geek you'll ever know.
Yeah, so you really, and right away you blend those two.
Yeah.
There's a hug and I'm a math geek.
Yeah.
Those two often don't come together, yeah.
And I love people.
Mm-hmm.
And I love building things, and I love creativity, and I like all of that. But I also like things that are incredibly complex. And I find that fulfilling. I find that actually, that's my happy place.
What does that mean, complex?
Well, I think that there are, this technology, building them in blockchain, really complex.
Because you also do like conflict resolution, right?
I do conflict resolution.
Is that something complex that you enjoy?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Like we've got a ball of yarn of drama going on at this organization.
Oh, please invite me. Please invite me. Yeah.
Do you like the drama, or you like to untangle it, right?
Well,
that's kind of what you're brought in to do.
At my core, I am a peaceful warrior. That I believe that love is a revolution, and that sounds really crazy in the world of business, but there's a kinder, gentler, thoughtful, more loving way to do business, and if you do it that way, you'll make a lot more money.
So what do you do?
So I wrote the prosperity business model, which is what most people know me for, is that writing the prosperity business model and being able to teach it. So we still have 40 brands that I advise to. I'm a business strategist. That's what my technical term is. I came out of the securities industry.
Okay.
Before that, I came out of public health. I wrote my thesis on women with AIDS in Brazil. So my undergrad work was in sexual health in third world countries. So I have this, and then, farm kid. Our family owned bars here, so we have all this music industry and music in there, and so I've gotten to have a really interesting life.
Boy, I didn't know a couple of those things about you.
Right.
Actually,
right.
just till right now.
It is. It's just this beautiful ride.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it really easy to be a strategist because I've been in so many situations, and I still take 30 days out of every year and live somewhere else in the world so that I can just have a new perspective. And to learn the things that you can learn only by being away from your life.
Wow, I do relate to that, the idea of having a lot of interests in a lot of fields as a writer and having written stories just for newspapers. One day they'll have you write about this, one day they'll have you cover that, and it's a real blend. And it's good because it allows you to relate to people in a variety of areas. So I'm guessing you've used that skill to connect with people, whether it's as a health advocate or whether it's as a business strategist.
Yep.
Across, diverse, all kinds of
Well, and I'm
people.
still teaching for the, I'm still teaching. My mentor in college still signs my paycheck. I still have one paycheck that comes from the same teaching that I've done for 26 years, which is every 14 days, I still teach financial education to people that are in the homeless shelter. So every 14 days, I'm still right there at where does the rubber meet the road?
Wow.
And we get success stories out of there all the time. And
really?
Oh gosh. Well, King Demetrius. I mean, we have Listen Media. That's been launched out of that realm.
Apologies for the skepticism, but having done a documentary
we've done this, yes.
and a series about people living on the street, maybe I've covered some of the people. Well, maybe that's the difference. Like you've covered people in shelters who are trying to get out of homelessness,
who are trying to get out.
I've covered people who've been in these camps who are pretty settled there. Yeah,
they want to be there.
Yeah, got it.
And there's a very different dynamic when you have a baby. And what is true for everyone that I'm teaching that's in the shelter system is that is through Project Secure, through Parents and Community Action. And those are people who have they have resources around them dedicated to helping them come out. Because now, it's really hard to get out of poverty.
Right.
In the United States.
I had someone once tell me it's expensive being poor. It's
so expensive being poor. Well, just basic things. I kind of warn everybody when they're in that situation is that, the minimum amount of nonprofits that someone who is in a homeless shelter would need to just basically try to survive is 24. So
24 what?
24 different nonprofits to be able to help them add up enough resources to move forward.
Geez.
So, and those are 24 doors that they have different sets of rules, timelines, waiting lists. I mean, it's enormous. I have somebody that 5 years ago, we moved her out, and she finally just now came up to Section 8 housing, and Section 8 housing dismissed her because she had an overtime payment, and it was $3,000 over. So her 5 years of waiting in line was taken away. Out of having to work overtime. And it was, that you just go, okay, well, here we go. Let's keep building. And so one of the things about that particular project is that you have to have somebody who understands math, who understands poverty, who understands wealth, who understands education and all the other things. That you have to have somebody that has that diversity of knowledge to be able to say, how are you personally going to grow?
Do you, so I'm guessing you've had to let some things go over the years. Like you can't be a health advocate, studying, what was it, AIDS in third world countries?
Yeah.
You can't, be a researcher of that, be consulting with businesses, be working at a homeless shelter, be working with Minnesota Blockchain all at the same time. Have you had to like let things go over the years and focus on different things?
For sure.
Like
I mean, you met me when I was still running Project ELF.
Yep.
And that was 18 years. That was an 18-year hobby. And it worked out great. But when I was done doing that, I did it.
That was
for people who don't know, Project ELF was a project that I invented because I was trying to prove a point. And the point was that and that came out of actually a article that I was interviewed for the New York Times business section. And that was proving that you could rearrange resources, that if we just rearrange resources, existing resources, not new resources, but if you can just rearrange existing resources, you can alleviate a lot of the suffering that is in poverty. And so Project ELF, and I'm self-employed, so I have money. So I get to make choices with that, with my business. So I made the choice 18 years ago that I would rent a single storage unit, which you've been to. It was a junk pile. It was a junk pile, but we just taught the community how to
You're
rearrange.
being self-deprecating, but it wasn't junk. It was people were donating very usable, nice things.
And a
lot of
household items, because we are helping people set up a household.
Yes.
So when you are looking at that, I made the decision that if I just paid the $5,000 a year, because was I going to donate $5,000 to something in the year? For sure. And I am that person who tithes, so I believe in putting 10% of my wealth back into the community. Minnesota Blockchain got some of that, right? That I'll invest in things that I want to see in the world, and I'll invest in people and things that I want to see in the world. So in this concept of rearranging resources, a lot of things came out of that, which was we wanted a big give. I wanted to prove some things around rearranging resources, and it was I'll rent this storage unit, and then I'll teach the community how to come in and out of it. And when you first start an idea and then you massage it 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 18 years, you learn a lot of different stuff. But what ended up happening out of that is we recycled 7 tons. That's 14,000 pounds of stuff. 7 tons of gear through that little thing of people who needed stuff. They needed bedding. We sent tons to your project, and we would just fill your whole car.
Yeah, I remember from the documentary I made, I sold out a few screenings of that.
Yeah.
And so we had a few grand. And with that, I started my own little nonprofit.
Right.
And
the Periphery.
Yeah, the Periphery Foundation. And then through that, I had gotten to know you or through another nonprofit. Anyway, that's kind of a story. But
through another nonprofit that we were helping.
You, and so you said, hey, come to my storage unit. And I'm like, okay, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I pull into this, indoor storage unit.
Right.
And you opened up this garage door, and there was just like a little Target store, right?
It is all floor to ceiling,
yes,
and it's 30 feet deep.
Yeah, like you said, bedding. There were even some small pieces of furniture, diapers, lamps, pens and pencils, notebooks, whatever.
Yeah.
So probably some like clothing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
clothing was the least we would do because people needed those everyday tools.
Yeah.
And if you were just going to go buy a pan, right? I mean, I'm just going to make some dinner. That's an hour of work, right? For somebody to even go to Goodwill and buy a pan, it's $15. It's not a $3 pan. But that's an hour of work for them.
Yeah.
And if I take out taxes, it's 2 hours. So giving somebody that tool gives them their actual life back. So, and it takes from the last birth of your baby, it takes 7 years to dig somebody out. So they have to have a resource that they can go to year after year after year after year.
You're accumulating all these statistics that really put some numbers on the challenges that these individuals face coming out of poverty.
I'm a math geek.
Yeah, you blend those two. But the foundation. I remember going back to them and saying, hey, Mickey is giving me the code to go into her storage unit. I can go there whenever I want.
Yeah,
and I thought, this is like, it's like creating matter out of thin air. Like it's a.
Well, it makes you.
What do they call that? There's like some kind of science fiction machine
Absolutely.
where you can create whatever you want out of thin air.
Yes. That's magnification. That's prosperity.
Like open up this door and then suddenly there's a whole. Because you had because of your nature, social, and you have a circle of friends that are in all kinds of different worlds. You've got a email list, and you would have people supply that.
And I have staff. I mean, so yes. So I will write it at that time. For 18 years, I wrote a newsletter, and you've written a newsletter. It takes you a while.
Sure.
And so I have staff. So it's easier for me to do things because I have an admin. And so my admin will send out that newsletter, and there were 500 people on there that were willing to say, if when I get new dishes, I'll give you my old ones.
Yeah, right.
When I get new bedding, you can have my old stuff.
Yeah.
And then we were doing 60 families for Christmas.
So it's kind of a little goodwill.
It really is, but it's empowering in this other way, because people in the community can help each other, and that's when it really changes.
Plus, there's no charge.
There's no charge.
Yeah.
There's no charge. There's no paperwork. There's no bank account.
There's no.
There's no bank account. There's no filing. There's no bank account. There's no insurance. There's no nothing.
Was Project ELF incorporated?
No.
Okay.
It's a door and an idea. And so everyone had to work on trust. Everyone had to work on the honor system.
That's right. Because if I would have given my code out to some stranger, they could have gone in and taken everything. You just trust. You just give it to the people you trusted.
Everybody knows. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows. If you want this to continue,
right,
these are the rules you have to play by. Mm-hmm. And for every person who's working in social work, to give them the opportunity to have a secret door that they can drive to at 5 o'clock when they're done working.
Were you ever burned?
Were we ever burned? You know what? We were burned on a unit that we didn't own. That wasn't our people. That somebody else had done that, and they had gone in and stolen a lot of product. But no, never.
Okay.
Because also in that unit, homeless people lived there. They were shopping there, so they were coming in there. They didn't want us to go away. They protected us all the time. Every person that ever worked every single person that worked in that storage unit knew us. We loved them. We loved their families. We supported them, and they went out of their way to support us.
They didn't have the code.
Oh, absolutely, they had the code.
The people living outside did? The homeless people?
Oh, the homeless people that lived inside that building.
They had the code to your
unit. They can go. Sure, you can go in there.
Because, and the reason I'm asking,
because they will protect us. That we are that all of that stuff is social capital. So if they know they can access whatever they want in there all the time, they don't need to steal anything.
Because you hear about food shelves and things like that, where people will come in and exploit the generosity. Sure. And then they'll empty the shelves like, oh, wow, this is all free? Well, thanks. And then they'll just take it all.
Well, I did ask them to please, you can take out for your friends, but don't ever let your friends in. Okay. So they know that they had a trusted role.
They had a role. Okay.
And they had a trusted role.
Yeah.
And they had their own units in there.
Oh, that's what they lived?
Yeah, they lived through those units. Okay. Because they can sleep in there during the day, and then they can ride the buses at night. Okay. So that you're not supposed to live in there. Right. But we all know better.
I see. Huh.
We all know they are.
Well, that was 18 years ago. So
that was 18 years ago. So I just closed it 2 years ago. This is only 2 years we've had it closed.
And you had it open for 18?
18.
So 20 years ago already, you were in a position where you could afford to spend a few thousand a month, a few thousand a year to do that. So what I'm curious about is how you made a life for yourself. Because like a challenge I have found, just kind of on a personal level,
for sure,
is you've got a hodgepodge of interests. And how I see you contrasting most guests and just maybe most people, or I don't know, is that we tend to know, and the famous people out there are those who do one thing super well. Super well. Steven Spielberg is a director. Yes. Period. Right?
Right. But that's not his own values.
Actor, whatever. I mean, they have a craft. He's a woodworker, right? Yeah. She owns a restaurant and whatever, a teacher. People do a thing. And
so do I.
You do a lot of things, it sounds like.
I actually only do one thing.
You do?
Yeah, but let me finish your statement and I'll tell you what it is.
To complete my thought, it was like, I work for MNblockchain. Yep. I do some stories for the paper. Yep. And it's like, okay, I got some money here, some money there. And it's like, sometimes I wonder, like, boy, would it be easier if I just did a full time in one thing? Yeah. Got a reliable, monthly income in that one thing. And then maybe also I wouldn't be spreading my attention and I could do more, like, instead of an aggregate of a few things, you could. So I'm curious how you found yourself being productive, spreading yourself, but not too thin. Right. And like managing each so that they're productive and income generating.
Right.
Right. So what did that look like?
Well, there's a lot of things to it.
What's that one thing that you said
I
you
only
do?
do one thing.
Okay.
And I only have one job.
All right.
And my job every day is to get up and to tune in to who am I, what am I here to do, and then I'm going to take this imaginary archer arrow and I'm going to try to hit that target. And that target for me is to be well within. I have one target.
And that pays the bills?
And that'll pay the bills.
To be well within? To
be well within. I have to know who I am and what I'm doing. And the one thing I do all the time is build prosperity. That there's a kinder, gentler, thoughtful, more loving way to be in the world. You can build a business that way. You can do a lot of things, but you have to know who and why you're doing it. It doesn't matter what it is. So when I'm building with every single different kind, right? Because, I have 40 brands that I'm advising to. 40. I am talking about everything from the insurance rate on raw eggs in ice cream to a fertility clinic and how that is working. I mean, like the amount of things that are there. Yes, I'm advising and using my math skills in a lot of ways, but I'm building prosperity. I only have to work with companies that I believe are aligned to my wellness, that I believe we need in the world. That I do believe that we needed that ice cream company, we needed that whatever.
I don't mean to sound like skeptical or anything. I was pushing back. I was just pushing back a little bit on the to be well within, because
it sounds too easy.
Well, it sounds. And maybe I've gotten a little cynical. I don't know, but it sounds a little detached. You could hear someone say, it's my goal in life just to be one with the world, and then you can see someone rolling their eyes and be like, okay, I gotta pay the bill, so I'm gonna go work on my construction job.
But you will get sick if you don't.
Don't what?
If you don't pay attention to your own heart, to your own view, to your own mind. I think I've given you my conversation about the kitchen countertop of life, right? So the kitchen countertop of life, if you think about the kitchen counter, right? If you are a horizontal surface in my house, you should be afraid, right? Because I'm going to come in with all my junk, right? I got bags and bags of stuff, this, that, the other thing. And any horizontal surface in my house should fear, because I'm going to start putting junk on there,
sure,
right? And we all have a horizontal surface in our life, in our mind. And people put all sorts of junk on that surface that they, look, I want a coffee pot, I want this, right? And sometimes that's our religion, sometimes that's our politics, sometimes that's a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
We put a lot of things and stack them up on that counter. But anybody who's had a clean kitchen counter knows, it's a breath of life. It's a breath of life. There's no chef in the world that would not agree with me on the fact that what's the number one thing that chef wants in his kitchen? He wants a clean workspace. And that's also why I like Minnesota Blockchain, because you have to be willing to take all your junk off your counter to work in tech, to work in really complex things. You have to be willing to set your religion, pack that coffee maker up, and just clear off the counter. And open your mind and have an open workspace that isn't bringing all your emotional garbage. But if you do not know who you are deep down all the way, if you do not feel comfortable with the person that you've become and invested in and the things that you've done with your life, you'll always want something on your counter to fix that. Right? We watch people who
occupy yourself with.
That's right. You want all these other things. We want all this stuff.
Yeah.
As opposed to going, let me just clear off that counter and enjoy this moment.
Okay. So it sounds like.
So for me, to be well within means that I have to know who I am, why I am, what are the projects I'm working on, and how can I work in the highest good of whatever is asked of me. And that's a difficult piece. So sometimes that asking for me in the last, let's just look at my week, right? One was creating social change for something, or building a roller skating rink, or buying 6 properties in a town so that town can regenerate. That there are many ways that I'm called to a conversation because they want that clear working space that I have in my mind.
But we live in a world that, there's no magical currency for doing good.
No.
Right? Like you need to ask your clients, can you pay my rate?
Nobody doesn't pay my rate.
But you have to have that conversation. Like,
for sure.
You couldn't.
Nobody's showing up at my door that isn't supposed to be there.
Right.
But
right.
But in 26 years, we've never had anybody not pay their bill. Nobody doesn't want to pay their bill.
What I find challenging is, and I think a lot of people, right? Like, because money is such a cut and dry, cold, cool kind of reality, which is beautiful.
Totally.
Because it's
Totally.
a level
We all
playing
need
field. Money. It allows for civilization to grow. But it seems to clash sometimes, if not often, with ideals. Like, if I could, I would just help the poor all the time. I would go out and I would just get stories of people living on the street all the time. But the practical reality is that
you need to make a living.
I got to make a living. I need something that's going to, are these people on the street going to give me money for taking their story? Well, no, of course not. So,
right. So you have choices.
So where does that enter your consciousness, right? I mean, because again, you're speaking like, whatever I can do the most good, and I know what I'm guessing what part of that means is receiving a high enough income so you and your husband can pay your mortgage and can
absolutely,
live and
right.
travel and do the things you want to do. So maybe just riff on that a little bit.
One, you have to get rid of your. So when people ask me, the number one question that people ask me anywhere in the world, the number one question, if I could get anyone to know one thing about wealth, one thing about money, what's the one lesson that everyone should walk away with? And that is that money only has one purpose. It's got one purpose, and it's going to buy you some choices. And we know that. We know that from all of the families we worked with that didn't have enough choices.
Sure.
Money's going to buy you some choices.
Yeah.
I just happen to like choices.
Sure. Yeah. Most 99% of the people love choices.
I like to have choices.
Yeah, options.
So I'm going to make sure that I consistently and persistently increase my craft, increase the work that I do, and increase the ability for me to do that craft, because I'm going to get paid very well to do that craft. So
what if you're called to say, you know what, I think I'm going to work with that company because I'm really into their purpose. But this one I'm not so called to work with is willing to pay me double.
Yeah, no, I don't have to do that because I've made money. I mean, that's the pure part of it.
That's what I want to know a little more about.
Yeah.
If you could talk a little bit about that. And now maybe you're at a place now in life where you can be a bit more selective.
I've been selective the whole time because you have to put your energy into that project. If that project is going to make me sick, or those people that to work with are going to keep fighting and I'm not going to be able to build anything with them, I have to walk away.
Tell me there have been times, though, where you've had to deny a project you really loved because you just didn't have, they weren't able to pay. And you couldn't afford to not make more money doing something else that may have been a little less ideal.
Well, for one, I book a year in advance. So you know, so when somebody's waiting a year to be on your books, they've got some time to think about it.
Okay.
And my books were closed to new clients for 6 years. So
new clients as a consultant?
Yeah.
So
we took no new clients for 6 years.
So this is what Mikeworth Consulting is. And you've had this business for
26 years now.
26 years.
Yeah. And 6 of those years, we would not let any new clients come in. Mm-hmm. They had to go on a waiting list. And at one point, we had 424 24 employees. We had 400 clients, and now we're down to this because it's 26 years.
400 clients?
400 clients. We at one point. Now we've shaved down because I gave everybody 10 years ago. I said, look, this is the day I'm retiring. So whatever you're going to build it now. So I will choose the projects that one pay me.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't pay me, I'll choose those too.
You will.
But I'll choose them because I have enough people that pay me. And those come first.
I'm just impressed by your ability to. I think life is about moderating a lot of different needs.
For sure.
And a healthy person can do so and, keep all the plates spinning or balls in the air juggling or whatever analogy you want to use. And that's a hard thing, I think, for a lot of people to do. So I think maybe they become too idealistic, mm-hmm. and as I've known people who've done service work on these encampments.
Oh, for sure.
And I know one woman, she's coming to mind, who she'd always give people money whenever they asked for it in these camps, and she couldn't hardly afford gas in her car.
Yeah.
So there was a real imbalance there.
Yeah, I agree.
And yet she was saying, well, I mean, I'm giving the shirt off my back, like I'm giving my last money like the woman in the New Testament. But yet she was in constant stress. And she was, and she has health issues. Like this poor woman, I feel bad for her, but and it seems like she's got an imbalanced perspective on some of those plates that she's not keeping spinning. Like she's letting that one completely be she's disregarding that one completely while she's keeping this one spinning, this one being maybe the service one, but not servicing, taking care of her own self.
But again, look at that conversation where we started. Mickey, that sounds so idealistic, to be well within.
Yeah.
Am I well within? If my life is crumbling, I'm not doing well.
I guess So again, I'm impressed by your ability to understand that well within means taking care of yourself.
And my
obvious.
family and my bills. I have to, you hear people talk about this, what's their North Star, what, stay in my lane, so forth. But you have to, again, most people have a very cluttered mind. Mm-hmm. If you've ever, and a lot of people from this group have sat with me, you can't hide my energy. Mm-hmm. You can't hide that I wake up like this. I am excited to be here.
Do you drink coffee?
Never. I don't drink caffeine at all.
Yeah.
I don't. I gave up caffeine 2 years ago, and it was a smart decision for me. But yes, I loved soda pop for years. Gosh.
Diet soda? Like Diet Coke, like that's kind of the go-to.
The worst of the worst. The worst.
Pib? No. Tab?
Just the worst.
I knew a Tab drinker.
Yeah. Well, I was a Dr. Pepper drinker for a lot of years. Then I went to Diet Mountain Dew.
Okay.
And that stuff, I mean, wow. That I've gone back to retest those things, and I think,
I guess Tim Walz is a big Diet Mountain Dew guy.
It's so easy. I'm so glad I got rid of it, but
yeah,
I haven't looked back. But I wake up with this energy, but it takes effort. It takes effort to clear your mind. It takes effort to clean off that kitchen counter of life.
So do you have a routine?
I have a routine. I have to have that time. And my time is in the woods. I have dogs. So, we're in the woods every day.
You are?
Yeah.
Which woods, if I may ask? Because I know where you live, and it's a city neighborhood.
We actually go over to the cemetery. Yeah.
How far is that from your place?
Right across from Bachman's. So there's a little woods there, but then we'll go over by it depends on the day, how much time we have.
Yeah.
How much daylight there is. Mm-hmm. But, I'll go over to the reserve over by the airport, or, we have park pass, things like that. But for me, I'm going to go to what makes me feel sane, which is, my dogs. I have a young dog who's just 2 years old. His name is Nigel, and he really needs 5 miles, mm-hmm. but I've only got time for 2. Mm-hmm. So we'll get you 2 miles in the woods, and mm-hmm. it's a lot easier on me.
So just to kind of see your kind of life path. Right, your timeline. You were in college studying this medical issue in third world countries, and then between there and your consulting career 26 years ago, what did that look like? Were you trying different professions?
Well, this is when everybody should listen to their mom, right? So I was trying to write my thesis. I had my children, and then I was taking care of somebody else's children as well, and my sister's kids. And so I had a really big household, and there was a lot on my shoulders. And that writing project was a lot. And we also had, I don't know if you remember this thing called the AIDS quilt.
Kind of heard of it.
So it is in their National Archive, but every person that I interviewed in my thesis, when we were doing the AIDS quilt, and it was laid out all at the University of Minnesota, and I have 8 panels on that quilt. And so you could do a panel for someone who had died.
8 squares?
8 squares. There, you can design them any way that you want. And so we had this huge vigil, and it was one of the last times it was ever viewed in its entirety, because it takes the whole, it's gigantic. And by the time I finished my thesis, every woman that I had interviewed for that, to take their story about how was AIDS working in that time, that was Clinton administration, every single one of them were dead.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a very difficult write for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to write just like you like to write. And I stopped writing for a long time because these were people who were full of life
mm-hmm.
that died because they didn't need to. That had
mm-hmm.
had we had what we have now,
mm-hmm. they
would have lived a
mm-hmm.
wonderful life. So you feel that immense loss, and then you look out upon all these tens of thousands of lives. We just had this, right? Look at how many people died in our last epidemic here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was writing my thesis kind of really sad. I lost my relationship that I was engaged at that time. That blew up, and my mom goes, you know what? I have this job for you. That she had retired early, and that she's like, I think you should come take this job. I would be your boss, and you would get home in time to get the kids off the bus. And that was working in a financial planning firm.
Okay.
And that changed my life. And all of my life came from that piece of advice, one piece of advice.
Did you think you were going to go into academic?
I would go to Johns Hopkins, yeah. So
Okay.
I was on my way to Johns Hopkins.
Okay.
But I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
I was tired. It was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
I was working full time and going to school and doing, and I like complex things. So, I like numbers. I like epidemiology. I like that type of thing. So it was a lot. And I got this little job, and it changed my life.
Hmm.
And it changed my life because I understood for the first time that money was actually a public health issue. And the gatekeepers, and a lot of times I'll pick something because I have a hunch. And my hunch that many years ago was that the role of women in a household across the world, no matter where you are, the role of that female in a household is they are the gatekeepers of healthcare. So they, if you think about how many times your mom or your aunt gave you health advice, it's immense. And they are the gatekeepers of that. And about 30 years ago, it started to change. And that gatekeeper included money. So you started
mm-hmm. seeing
women, when I came into the field of finance in 1999, only 1 out of 10 households had the female as the highest wage earner. And then it became 3 out of 10. And now we are really very equal in the state of Minnesota, that you have men and women earning at a very similar capacity. So when you think about that change, that's not just like, hey, it's 30% more. No, it's 300% more.
Mm-hmm.
1 turns to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so that change for women
mm-hmm.
really taking on financial literacy as being part of what kept their family healthy changed everything. And that is why I knew at that point, my boss at that time made me a proposition. And he said, look, your skills will do very well in science and in healthcare, but I guarantee you'll change a lot more people if you take this on.
This was the boss doing financial planning?
Yep.
And did you focus on women?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I started Rich Chicks at that time.
Rich Chicks?
Yeah, we started something called Rich Chicks, which my mom still owns to this day. So
what is that?
It was a financial education group.
Okay.
And we had 15 people in a coffee shop in Northeast. And people would ask me, like, why did you start that? And I went, well, because I wanted to be rich. And I was a welfare mom. Mm-hmm. And, you know, how many people do you meet that was a welfare mom that became the top woman in finance, not once, but twice?
What does that mean?
The top woman in finance, it means that you are elected from your peers for the work that you have done.
Okay.
So
in your field.
In my field.
Yeah.
And then I also so I've won a lot of awards for the way that I think, the way that I build things in the
mm-hmm.
world, because there's a kinder, gentler, thoughtful, more loving way to do work. And if you do it that way, you'll make more. Mm. You'll have more. You'll give more. You'll be more.
Boy, so how do you respond to, and maybe you see this as now, so then you switch gears to consulting.
So I'm in consulting. So I left, so I had to start with everybody else, uh-huh. right? Get a securities license, mm-hmm. become a financial advisor, mm-hmm. get a clientele, work that clientele, you sell them products, mm-hmm. and I knew immediately that model, so to make $30,000, I had to sell $1 million of product.
Okay.
That's still today. So mm-hmm. like if you're wondering why financial advisors try to sell you stuff all the time, that's how they make a living.
Yeah.
They're salespeople.
Yeah.
What I really wanted was something more complex than that. So once I learned something, I'm kind of done.
Okay.
And then I'll move on to something bigger mm-hmm. and harder.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I had that conversation too about why would I want to come work with blockchain? Because it's compelling and it's interesting.
Sure.
And I'll learn something.
It's a frontier.
It's a frontier.
Yeah.
So when you said, well, what about these things that you give up? When I'm done learning what I need to learn out of that, I'm out.
Oh, I see.
I don't stay with something when it's not in my heart anymore.
So as a consultant, and you've got
mm-hmm.
a lot of clients.
Well, now I'm down to 40.
That to me sounds like a lot, but maybe not.
It's not.
Okay.
But
do you have a team?
Them. I do.
Okay.
I do. But
so some of them work with these 40 and you don't?
No. I directly oversee them.
So you have relationships with all 40 of them?
Yes. And all their numbers.
And you had far more than that.
I did. And then when I was a lot larger, we had a lot more private individuals. So it was easier. But everybody knew that you're going to come in for an annual review mm-hmm. and that there's this many of you, and I would put it on my desk of how many people we were serving. So like when we get you an appointment, you have to come. You can't reschedule. You will not get another spot.
And how many did you have at a time?
At 400, when we had 400.
I just can't.
So
that's so,
you can only.
You can't even do enough annual reviews. Like
you can.
You have to do more than one a day.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Every day you're doing an annual review with someone.
Oh, yeah.
Multiples.
And some people I have to see every quarter. So you would get the rhythm in. We would assign you a number, right? Because that's how I make sense of my world is math.
And did you have a larger staff then?
Well, to manage 400 people, I need 3 staff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then as I picked more complex projects, I just didn't want to manage that much stuff.
And were these all small business owners?
No, they were individuals. So families. So you would see families and individuals. So I started out as a securities license.
I see.
Yeah.
So this wasn't business consulting. This was
when I went to business consulting.
Planning.
Yep. And then as a financial planner, I started really understanding that who do I attract? I attract other people who have my zest for life, mm-hmm. right? I'll take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be entrepreneurial people. They just radiate towards each
mm-hmm.
other.
Mm-hmm.
They find each other. And so it was easier for me to just go, let me stop doing this and serving so many people, and let me slice it down.
So the 400 was financial planning.
Yeah, financial planning.
Advisor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now your 40 is the consulting.
Consulting.
For the business.
All I do is business. And all I've done is business for the last 10 years.
I thought you were consulting with 400 companies.
No, I can't do it.
Got it.
That would require too much of me. But even now, 40 is a lot. That's my retirement number.
That and that work in consulting, this is where I wanted to, and any challenge I throw you, by the way, the whole motive is because I want you to prove me wrong, right?
Oh my gosh!
I do it to strengthen, like a coach would strengthen a player or something like that, because I want you to dispel all my challenges, anxiety. So I can, because I want you to be right. But there are just but here's another challenge I have about your philosophy. You go into consulting, you talk about, when you give, basically when you give, you get. When you are of service, you're provided for, right? That kind of throwing love out into the world, you get love back. You get.
I don't throw love out to get love back.
Well, it's the idea that
giver's gain I don't believe in. No.
Why don't you rephrase your kind of philosophy then before I challenge it?
Sure. That the basic fact is that if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm putting my work out there not to get something back. Putting my work out there because that's what I want to create. I'm a creator. But I'm not saying there are many things that I want in the world, right? I want affordable daycare, right? So I'm going to work with somebody who I think can build that. So I'm going to put my energy into something else so they can magnify. I'm going to put my energy into that so they can magnify. That if I pick very carefully what I'm willing to help build in the world, those people will build it. They will build it. You and I worked on that project for men, right? That we sent so many people for that project, Mad Dads, to better lives. Right. But that wasn't my energy into mentoring that leader for I've mentored that leader now for 25 years.
Were you paid for any of that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And mentoring that business, because that was one of the brands that I built, and we built him out of, I met him in a parking lot too.
Yeah.
And when you build those things, if I invest into that leader so that they can lead, they'll magnify everything that they can. That if they have support, they'll build so many things. That's the same thing that happened with the Somali community, with SomFam, that we just had our big anniversary, and that serves so many people in that community. But you have to have that leader. That leader needs someone like me that isn't going to get tired, that I know who I am, I know what they're trying to do, and I don't need a gold star to do that. And a lot of times I can just figure out how to make my paycheck.
Are most of your clients nonprofits?
No. Most of them are just an average business that's doing something that is interesting.
Okay. Well, my challenge was going to be, you exude this positivity.
Yeah.
And this, let's cooperate. And my question was, what happens when you work with a company and they're dealing with a cutthroat competitor, because there's kind of this positive, negative.
Sure.
Or maybe that's not even the right way to look at it. Sometimes people are cutthroat. Sometimes people are backstabbing.
For sure.
Right? Sometimes.
Oh, we see it all the time.
So that incentivizes others to be that way, right? Boy, if I don't backstab them, they're going to backstab me, right? It's kind of the game theory or something like that. Like if you watch a reality TV show, the person who's the most cooperative doesn't always win, right? It's the person who plays the politics, the person who got them to start an alliance, and then they lie to someone about I got your back, and then they vote them off.
And
so how do you I guess faithfully remain positive and advocate for a positive approach of service to, say, your clients, when that might not be good business.
Yeah, I've left a lot of projects because they didn't align for me.
Okay.
That I wrote a business plan for somebody, and I went, hey, I think if you change your business plan, it'll do this. And Chad actually knows that business plan because he was in that building, and I left that model because ethically I couldn't stay, because they wouldn't treat their employees with something as basic as healthcare, and that they had the money and they would never choose to invest it in their people. And I gave them that business model, and then they decided suddenly that they had all the ideas and that was all them, and so forth. Not that I need a gold star, but they forgot where they came from. They forgot what we had built. They forgot the proposal. They forgot what was there. And they decided that they would just go for this other thing. And that business model made her $600,000 extra in her business annually by changing it that way. And I knew from that day that I would, and I left that. And I just said, look, I'm out. I never talked to that person again. Ever. Because they were never going to change. They were always going to give their people the very least. And that I can't work for. Sure. I can't work for. So I'm glad that they make money. Great. I'm glad that model worked. Great. But I can't stay there. And so the question you have is, great. Are things going to blow up in my face? Absolutely. Absolutely. Business owners blow up all the time. They will burn their lives to the ground. I don't have to stay there for that. I don't have to stay there for that. And I've had people burn beautiful businesses to the ground.
Have you had any failures,
Oh, for sure.
Say there's no failure. But like where people have taken your advice and it didn't work because the industry was, I don't know, saturated, or there was just external factors?
I'm risk averse in a lot of things. So I like things that I know will make money. So I'd rather pick a nice little cash cow that you can repeat over and over and over again, so that you can get that stabilization.
I see.
And most small business owners really like that safety net. I like having money in the bank.
Sure. You like having choices.
I like having choices.
Yeah.
And I like people staying tuned to what the business is that they're doing, because the business that I would have run 30 years ago isn't the business I'm running today. The person I was 30 years ago. If you had told me when I was a welfare mom that I was going to grow up and be Mickey Mikeworth, to the person that I am today, and all of the opportunity and all of the amazing people I meet every day, if you had told me that, I couldn't have swallowed that pill.
Did you have to undergo some personal, growth?
Oh, yeah.
Was it just sort of learning it along the way, or were there times where you had to seek out some help, or
I still have help.
Guidance, or I don't know?
Oh, yeah. Therapy is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But I have coaches. I mean, I've been coached. I've had therapy. But again, I've had the common sense, fearlessness of looking at what's in my own head and challenging it. Right? Clearing off that kitchen counter of my life. Do I really believe that about my religion? Do I really believe that about our government? Do I really believe that? Do I want to carry all of that? Is that what I want on my counter?
Do you compare yourself to others who do what you do, and they make more money, and they, I don't know, have more prestige, or they have something bigger than you, more than you, bigger, whatever it is?
Sure. That doesn't mean they're happier than me.
Yeah. Do you think if you did things differently, and maybe prioritized profit more or income more, that it might come at the expense of your whole self?
Oh, absolutely. Fat and happy. I like being fat and happy. That I will rather do less work and be happier.
Yeah, right.
I would much rather do that.
But I mean like the quality of work too, because what I'm getting hung up on, and maybe this is just something I gotta stop doing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Bring it on.
What I get hung up on is I see, because look, I want to live in this, you said peaceful warrior, and I'm just like right away, that got me, because that's not going to work out in the battlefield, Mickey.
You know what? That's because you have this idea. When people say peace, they think that's anti-military, and that's not true. But it takes a lot of balls to be willing to build peace. And I'll tell you, that's a lot more balls than it takes to just shoot a gun. It takes a lot of effort. It is so much harder to build peace than it is to make war. And that stereotype, I'll push back on you any day. That this idea that just because I'm peaceful, or that I wish for peace, or that I'll stand up for peace, doesn't mean I'm not willing to fight for it. Oh, I'll fight for it.
Boy, what a contradiction that is. I'm going to fight for peace. Should that be the tagline on the YouTube thumbnail?
What do you think? What do you think is happening all over the world?
Well, that's what a lot of people say they're doing.
Sure.
You know,
but
like again, Russia would say that.
Oh, they're going to say, so does Ukraine.
They would both say that. Hey,
but we have 100 wars going on right now. There's 100 wars going on in the world right now. It's a lot harder.
Maybe I'm mistaking peace and pacifism or something like that.
Right. But
because I had the same challenge for the Mennonites when I interviewed them.
Yes.
Like I said, but if everyone acted like you, then, you know, in my head, my first thought was, if everyone acted like you, because they're pacifists, they don't believe in police,
nope.
They don't believe in military, nope. They don't vote.
But they don't need that in their community because they are all aligned in that.
It's a high trust society. But I said, if everyone thought like you, then, so the first place I went was, but boy, if everyone they'd all be helpless, and then some gang or some militia or whoever would come in there with guns, and you would all be at, like, they'd take away your kids and enslave them. They'd, you know, and I think of all these horrific things.
For sure.
And then I thought of it one step further, and I said, wait a minute, if everyone thought like you, there wouldn't be a need for police.
There wouldn't be a need.
But that's not the real world. That's where they took it.
That's not our world, but that is the world that they believe they can create in their community, and they did.
Right, and is that similar to you, where you found, like, are you at peace knowing, like, hey, I understand that there's politics, there's literal war, there are these industries in tech where they have to go, you know, do battle, so to speak.
Sure.
You know, whether it's Google versus Apple versus whatever.
Absolutely.
But that's just not my style.
That's not my style.
And so I'm going to create my life and put a little moat around it, and we're going to have a peaceful warrior, put wellness, abundance, peace out there in the world.
Look, I
can make a living doing that.
That's right.
Without having to worry about how they're all making their living.
That's correct. That I call it loving dominion, right?
Okay.
What do I hold dominion over? Right? What do I hold dominion over? There's very little I control. There's very little in the world I can control. Very little. But what I can control, am I doing it the way that I believe is thoughtful? That I'm not going to change the fact, and you and I have been in situations that are life-threatening. You know, I've been in life-threatening situations.
Yeah, and this might be...
And I've been in situations where literally we can lose our lives.
Sure.
And I've been on those streets. I've walked those streets. I've been in that gunfire. I've had gunfire over me. I've been in a country that is, you know, that is in war. Those are truths, and they are painful.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I have to align with that. But I have to know what I believe.
I have a hard time blending like peace with self-defense.
Sure. I think that's a really good thing to have a line in.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. When you think about just that statement of, I am willing to bet, if we did a poll of everyone in this building and asked them how they feel on these 4 subjects, they don't know the answer within themselves. They haven't done the work to build their own wisdom. And wisdom is our thoughts, our experiences, and our knowledge, but then it's crafted. We have to craft what we think.
Does that help you judge people less because you recognize that, hey, I have my dominion here, and they have their dominion, and we need police.
Oh, I believe in police.
Right?
Yeah.
We need we can't have a completely open border. Maybe you believe that, maybe you don't. I don't know.
I do not believe in an open border.
So you have to tell people no.
Yes.
You're not allowed to drive this speed down the highway. You're not allowed to come into this country with that record. You're not allowed to come into the club or the restaurant. You're too drunk. Right? So you believe in saying no, in putting up a wall, so to speak.
Sure. But no.
But that's not how
but
that's not the role you take. You're not the bouncer. You're not the border patrol person.
No, but
you
the
leave that to
illusion
others.
Of that is that there's an illusion there that no is not peaceful. I've said no to a lot of things.
It's confrontational.
Sure. But that doesn't mean it's not. Saying no doesn't mean.
Understood.
That I'm in opposition to you.
Well, you said no to that business that didn't
I'm
take
out.
your advice.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. And that wasn't about them. That was about me.
Yeah, right.
That I had to know me. I'm not mad at somebody out here. I only can make decisions based on what is right for me, the risks and the things I'm willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it also easy for me to mentor people because they're going to make the decisions they're going to make.
Sure.
And it's their life. That's their path.
Yeah, right.
Nobody else has to wake up and look at me every day except me. And we're none of us are getting out of here alive.
Right.
So you better know who you are and what you're doing.
I like that. I like how you seem to be, speaking of peace, be at peace with who you are. Know
peace
who
starts
you are.
Right in. That's where it starts.
And just do you. I mean, this is such a after school special kind of advice here, but your life seems to really take that to heart, and it's been good for you to do so, and great for a lot of people like myself who you've been able to help on account of that. Why don't we end this on talking about MNblockchain a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about what's really so good here.
We did touch on it, why you like the blockchain industry, the potential, right, for this technology to really help humanity. And there are so many ways that it could.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think we probably even need to spell it out, all the different brainstormed examples, because a lot of people listening already understand those things, right? They see it with art, and they see it with gaming, and they see it with finance, and they see it with data management and so forth,
right?
Records and whatever.
Well, there's just so many windmills.
Yeah, right.
Of conceptual and actionable items.
Right. And specific to our organization, then you also said that you just like the kind of people that are involved. Right? They're builders. Their hearts seem to be in the right place. Because you give a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you've got 40 companies you consult, or organizations you consult with that pay you, and you advise for MNblockchain without charge.
Correct.
And in fact, you've donated.
Oh yeah.
So
I have real money on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's real money on the table.
There's a lot here you're giving to MNblockchain, but
it will magnify that when you look at what that happens for you as a leader. If we just keep you on that forefront and continuing to be able to hold your vision of where do you think this community can go, if we can keep you as a leader moving forward, and you as a leader comes kind of clunky because you also have a board and then you also have a community under you. But if you can keep that leader courageous, peaceful, informed, aligned. The amount of good that you have created in this community is crazy. I mean, this was just 2 years. Look at our last 2 years.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to call out right now to those listening is like, this is what you just said is that has been your recipe or your strategy for helping this organization grow as it has. And so it's sort of like, hey, there's a behind the scenes look at what's helped MNblockchain develop into what it has. From your perspective, and when I say into what it has, I mean the events, the working with some lawmakers, the partnerships with corporations, these podcasts and the media we have on our YouTube channel.
Right.
So, from your perspective, has it been gratifying and like have you seen that?
I'm giddy.
Yeah.
I'm giddy. I'm really proud of our community, and it wasn't as if it wasn't strategic. I mean, we have strategy. Today I brought that drawing that I did on our very first day.
That funnel.
Yeah. Of going, Brandon, let me show you this funnel.
Let's see where we're at.
Well, let's build this.
Yeah.
Let's build this. And that was new to you.
Yeah, I hadn't seen such a illustration before.
Right. And for those of you who don't know me very well, I always carry pens and paper. I always have 100 colored pens and so forth, and I'm going to draw it out, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to artistically move it in my neurodivergent brain because I'm dyslexic. So I am going to get a visual cue for myself. And when we think about every meeting that you've ever seen me at, I've got a pen, I've got a paper, I'm writing down everything that you say, and I'm aligning it.
Yeah, I do the same often. It helps me. It helps the information stick.
Yeah. And you write
and focus
a lot smaller than I do.
Oh, the letters? Yeah.
I have to squint to go, what is yours saying? And you do a lot of arrows too. You love
I got
arrows.
One right here.
Yeah, you'll put a little square around it and a little arrow of, I got to remember that later.
Well, the arrows and the things I circle and underline, this is largely why I prefer pen and paper.
Yes.
Because it's harder to do just suddenly do a little note like where you're writing sideways.
Oh, yeah.
Or vertically, or you're circling. It's just harder to do that digitally. But
right. Anyway. Yeah, I can't do it digitally. I am a pen. I am analog. It is so true.
Yeah.
It is so true. But when you go back to the things that we build, I think it's really fair for our audience to know that when you started, all we had was a pen and paper. There was no money in the bank. We had no membership.
The bank account was closed.
Yeah.
When I first, at some point it was closed, and we started a new. Yeah, so we kind of started from scratch.
There was nothing.
We had a small community from the previous president and board, but yeah, it was kind of starting over.
Yeah, kind of all the way. So all of the things like when everybody comes in and sees that big beautiful law conference.
Yeah.
Right, that is not an easy trick to pull. And the first one, I was taking care of my parents, so you had to. The first one, I kind of abandoned you. You were sunk a little bit there. It was hard because I was taking care of my parents. But again, right, that question of how am I well within? I had to take care of my parents.
Right.
And everybody had to stop. So I'm out.
Yep.
And I told your whole board that of, hey, I'm not distant because I'm flaky. I'm distant because this is where my allegiance is.
Yep.
And it was a really important time for me because we lost one of my parents at that time too. But that first law conference, you were on your own, and it was hard.
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah. It was stressful.
It was. I didn't handle it very well. It pushed me, but I didn't know. I'd never done anything like that before.
No.
And
most people haven't.
True.
But that was the pivotal change.
And I'm
in that group.
I hadn't run an organization before, really, either. So I'm trying to think if I had it all. I've largely been an independent worker. Even when I worked for a school district doing their marketing, it was a very small charter school.
Right.
And it was big for a charter school, but that was the only school in the district. It's itself, you know. And so I was the only marketing person, so it was a one-man show there. But yeah, so to put something together that involved a lot of people, that was.
Yeah. But that one moment.
And I had a lot of worry that things weren't going to go right.
Oh boy!
Right.
I have to tell you, we all have that.
Yeah.
We all have that. I mean, I was feeling that way on the last law conference, that it was raining and it was cold.
That's right. It was pouring. Yeah.
How are we going to get in that door? And but that one event, really, I think, in hindsight, that was the game changer.
Yeah, helped us turn a corner.
That one, I'm sure it was incredibly painful for you, but it was also that pivotal moment for you as a leader to say, if I can survive this.
It was one of those moments where once it's over, you're glad you did it.
Yeah.
Because it's a proving ground.
Yes.
And
but you wouldn't have picked that to prove it, but it happened.
Well, I imagine it coming together easier. And this goes to
right.
Like why you when we talked about doing this podcast, something you mentioned was, I want to impress upon people how much work goes behind the scenes to help an organization grow. And I saw a tweet recently that talked about this guy, this young guy wrote this tweet, and it was a screenshot of the tweet, so I didn't even see the original one. Back when they were called tweets, I suppose it was. You know,
what are they called now? I don't know.
It's a post, ex-post.
Oh, post.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But what it said was, and I'm going to paraphrase, I used to think, when I was a kid, I used to think that stuff was just there.
Yeah.
And when I got older, I realized how much work went behind any single thing. Building a house. Building, of course, a commercial building.
Yeah.
Putting on an event. And then he said, and like kind of the takeaway line was, the world is a museum of passion projects.
Yes. Like
somebody worked their butt off and poured their heart out to make that building go up, or house go up. Now you could say, well, these housing developments are all put up in a matter of months, and they're all cookie cutter.
Sure.
And whatever.
You could say that.
You can pick it apart. But if you say drive any downtown of any mid-sized town, certainly any city, and you're looking at all these buildings, all these large events, all these, the Academy Awards,
all of them,
whatever.
People have
an individual's career.
Into them.
Joe's trucking service, I mean, it's something as every day as you can, think of, some construction company or a mechanic's garage.
Right.
Like these are, it's like, in order to really, I'm to the point now where I'm believing where it's hard to live abundantly without putting in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Correct.
Like that's just the price of admission.
That's the price of admission.
So, on one hand, if you're negative and cynical, it's like, oh, that sucks. Like there's no easy way out of this one or through this one. But the beauty and the positive side of that is like appreciation, because you know how much work goes into and how much stress. So like whenever I go to an event, I'm like, I'd appreciate it more.
You can appreciate it.
Right, that kind of thing. Heck, a large family. Right. Because you know what it's like to raise one kid. Well, how about like, a family of 6 or a family of 3, whatever. Like that's a lot of work to raise a good kid, to raise, to be there for him or her. So yeah, it just really cranks up the appreciation. And I know that's something that you were hoping to convey here in this conversation too about MNblockchain.
I love
and I get a lot
that
of it
passion
too.
Project concept.
Yeah.
Because I think
museum
about that.
Museum of passion projects.
A museum of passion. Like that would explain my whole life.
John here at Quantum Lex.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm a fan. It's easy to be a fan.
Mikeworth Consulting.
Right. Well, but, think about that. I've been in my career a long time, but I've spent, 60,000 hours talking about money. I mean, that's a lot of time.
Wow.
60,000 hours of how do we make this and budgets and this and that, or, all of the things that can go wrong. I mean, the list only continues. And so lots of things go wrong in that amount of time. that people go, oh yeah, you've been doing that for 26 years. No, that's 60,000 hours invested in one concept. You get really good at it. Mm-hmm. You get really smart at it. And
boy, I bet you've got stories. We could do another podcast about telling you stories. Like kinds of fires you've had to put out, or the kinds
they're fantastic. And I like firefighting. Yeah. I like firefighting. I like things that are difficult. I like to have things come back into a better place. And when you think about the complexity of getting this group together, the people that have come into the scene, into the community that are here now, we've built from that community, people who are already interested in it. You tease me all the time about name tags.
We brought our own Monday.
I see. Wasn't that nice?
Yep.
But you're like, do we really need a name tag? Yes, you need a name tag, right? And then when people come in, this is a very calculated concept to build community. And one of them is, I need to know your name.
Yeah, right.
And you have to be willing to give me your name. And so people literally now have put enough name tags on in the last 2 years that they go, oh yeah, here's John. Oh, here.
Yeah.
Talk to Chad.
Right.
And they also know what part of what are their interests. And we've also given them many different ways to see the technology. You've picked out, and now they get it in two ways. They get it live in the pizza place, and they get it on audio. Right. Plus, they get your Slack channel. Plus, they get the LinkedIn. Plus, they get the newsletter. Plus, we get all these little one-offs. Right? Remember when we did the thing where we were all little. We were all avatars, and we were
we did a virtual event. Yeah,
a virtual event. And that was a great speaker, and he was from another country. We wouldn't have been able to. We wouldn't have had that.
Right. Yeah. That's what motivates me too, is seeing all the life that has, been planted and grown out of this little organization.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the dean was so excited when he saw our room full of people.
Yep. We should be back at St. Thomas this fall.
Right.
For a larger law event.
But that came because you were supported enough to be you.
That's right.
That the team itself had enough trust to be able to come again.
Yeah, and there are real discussions about, are we on the right track?
Sure.
Is this working? And I've come to the board with those. I've come to you with those. Yep. So maybe a nice way to wrap this up is to say thank you. Thank you, Mickey, for being that rock, right? Being that cheerleader, being a lot of things, really.
Yeah.
Being that oracle.
It's handy to have a
for
Mickey.
Wisdom. Yes.
It's handy to have me around.
MNblockchain, 40 clients, and perhaps other nonprofits you work with for free. All agree.
Yeah, well, I'll take that love. Yeah.
Please do.
I'll take that love.
Please do.
So, okay, before we say goodbye, what are you the most excited about that's coming up this year?
For the organization?
Yeah.
Well, we had a couple new sponsors last year. One was another law firm. One was Ottertail Power. And I liked seeing sponsor from a whole other industry.
Yeah.
Because that's representative of this technology, right? We could, in theory, we could have Target be a sponsor, right? Yeah. That's not calling them out or anything, but we could have a retailer, is my point. We could have a healthcare company, and we've got big ones in Minnesota, right, be a sponsor. We could have a manufacturer, or was it C.H. Robinson does the trucking?
Yep.
Right, they could be, because of supply chain stuff.
Supply chain.
So it was nice to have a power company interested in Bitcoin mining.
Yep. And we help them.
Yeah, so to continue to help other companies, and I'm from rural Minnesota, they service rural Minnesota, so that was kind of a nice connection as well. I would say that, and I'm looking forward. So I'm looking forward to working with other companies in other industries, because that's just a fun thing to have, that kind of newness, and then also more conversations like this, because this is a nice application of what I've done a lot before getting the MN blockchain. Right. My journalism stuff. So.
And are we allowed to talk about that before everybody goes? Do they know?
Well, I mentioned the homelessness documentary and so forth. So yeah, the periphery is the media.
Yeah,
you can find it.
That's no joke. I mean, there's 20,000 people following
on
the
YouTube.
Work.
Yeah,
there's 20,000 people that are following that.
Yeah.
It's not.
Collected a few over the years doing my stuff.
Yeah. So it's not a small passion project. That's a real one.
That is.
It's a real one.
That's mine. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, as soon as we get done with this podcast, Brandon and I are going to walk downstairs so that he can grab medical supplies and add them to this giant suitcase that you're going to carry.
I'm taking 2 now.
Now is 2. Okay.
We've raised $1,000 for that school.
Okay.
So I was ordering supplies for them on Amazon this week.
Oh, yeah. So now...
And some has started to come in. So now we have 2 50-pound suitcases of school supplies for this school in Honduras. Meanwhile, I'm going down there for MN Blockchain for the Crypto Cities Summit and week, which is next week.
Right.
So anyway, by the time this podcast comes out, I'll probably already be back. But there'll be another podcast from there.
Yeah. That
I'll be
great.
recording,
Yeah.
And doing a story for the Star Tribune.
And see?
Well, let's hope they take it. They are interested, but no guarantees.
No guarantees, but
I'll write a good one.
We're hoping.
Yeah, we will.
We're hoping.
Yep.
So, for everybody out there, one, if you even listened to this point, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for hanging out with each other. And good work. Good work, Brandon.
Thank you. Thanks for doing the thank you.
Good work, Chad.
All right.
We never get to see him in front of the camera ever.
Not on this one.
Not on this one. Oh, do you get to come on others? Okay. Bye, everybody.